Blash is a Twitter dashboard written in .NET 5. It uses Blazor WebAssembly, ASP.NET Core Web API, and the Twitter API to display real-time tweets. Now in part 1, I showed you a demo on how to use Blash. As well as that, I showed you how to set up a Twitter developer account, something you'll need for when you're using Blash. If you haven't seen part 1, I suggest you watch that first before watching this video. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the source code that is used to actually power Blash. In addition to that, I'll show you how to set up a client ID and client secret from the Twitter API. Now for more ASP.NET Core coding tutorials, visit roundthecode.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/roundthecode, and follow us on Twitter, it's @roundthecode. So now I'm going to walk you through the source code for Blash. If you wish to download the source code, you can do. Just go to roundthecode.com/Blash. Now in front of me, we've got the Blash source code and we've got the Visual Studio project open as well. And I'm going to talk you through some of the class libraries. Now we've got roundthecode.blash.data, and what happens is that the API will retrieve the information from the Twitter API, but it needs to store it somewhere. It stores it in a SQL Server database, and it does this through Entity Framework. And what roundthecode.blash.data does is it stores all the objects that are needed for this. So inside here, we've got our objects, we've got our author object here, and this stores information like the Twitter name and Twitter handle and an image for the author. We've also got a dashboard class as well. This stores a title for it and the search query used. Then we've got the tweet, and this stores the tweet's contents and the date for when it was published. We've also got this dashboard tweet linking class as well. Now the reason why we need a linking class is because a tweet might belong to more than one dashboard. It might be relevant for more than one search query. So that's the reason why we need this. So now we're going to have a look at roundthecode.blash.shared. Now the API runs a background task which connects to the Twitter API through a filtered stream. This filtered stream allows us to return tweets in real time. In order to do that, we need to run a background task on the API, and we do that through a hosted service. However, because it's a background task, we can't actually see what's happening, so we need to log the output somewhere. What we've done is we've created a new login provider, and this login provider will actually create these logs into text files. And that is the whole purpose of roundthecode.blash.shared. It stores all the objects to make that happen. Our final class library is roundthecode.blash.twitterAPI. Now, as you can probably have guessed, this is where the actual activities perform against the Twitter API. So if we have a look in here, we've got all our data objects, and this stores all the data from the Twitter API. We've also got some services down here, and this is where the actual methods are performed against the Twitter API. So if we have a look at an example in the Twitter API tweet service, what this does is that on this method here, we've got a get recent tweets. So what happens is that when we've got a dashboard and we're loading up the project for the first time, it needs to get the most recent tweets. So we've actually got some data to show on the dashboard. In addition to that as well, we've got a search stream, and this is how it gets the actual real-time tweets from the Twitter API. It connects to a filtered stream, and this method allows us to do this. So I've talked you through some of the class libraries. Now we're going to have a look at some of the web applications that power Blash. First one is the ASP.NET Core Web API, and this does a number of things. Now when this gets initialized, it will load up all the tweets that we've got already set up as rules in the Twitter API. In addition to that, it will connect to the Twitter API through a filtered stream. And what this filtered stream allows us to do is to actually get the tweets in real time. Now, in addition to that, it wouldn't be an API without endpoints, and we've got a couple in here in the dashboard controller. Within that, we've got a create and delete method. Now within that, the Blazor WebAssembly application allows you to create and delete actual dashboards, and this basically calls the endpoints that are retrieved in here. Finally, I want to talk you through SignalR and how that works. So we've got a hub set up here, a Blash hub. Now what this SignalR does is that whenever we get a real-time tweet or a dashboard is created or deleted, basically something that needs to be mirrored across any user that's connected to it through the Blazor WebAssembly application. And this is what SignalR does. It allows us to mirror the actual events across all users connected through the API. It's not just through one, it's through all of them. So everyone is seeing a particular instance in real time. It's not just that one particular user. So the final thing I want to show to you is the Blazor WebAssembly application. Now inside here we've got our www root folder, and this stores CSS and image files. As well as that, we've got our components folder, and this builds up all the particular components needed for the Blazor WebAssembly application, such as showing a dashboard or showing a particular tweet. So this is the dashboard component here. It allows us to delete a dashboard, shows the title, and shows all the different tweets within that particular dashboard. This is the tweet component here, and it displays the tweets. So it will display things like the image, the Twitter name, although that's part of the actual image, but the Twitter name is shown down there, alongside the handle, what the actual content of the tweet is, and what time it was published. In addition to that, we've got this modal component here as well. Now the user can go ahead and create and delete a dashboard, but they need to show confirmation when deleting whether they actually want to do it or not, and this gets displayed in a modal. And it's the same for creating a dashboard. They need the option to put in a search query for what they want their dashboard to be, and this is done through a modal. Finally, I want to show you the loader as well. So once we're creating or deleting a dashboard, it takes a few moments for the API to actually perform that task. Now to let the end user know that something's happening, we show a loading screen, and this is basically what this component is doing here. So now these components need to be built up onto a page, and that's the whole point of this index.razor here, which is inside the pages folder. We've got our logo here, and a new dashboard button will be displayed within this new dashboard template, which we can have a look within here. So we go into components, dashboard templates, new dashboard template. This is the button here. It's got an on-click method. Go to the definition for that. It calls the create async method within the modal service, and this will display a modal for the user to allow them to create a new dashboard. Going back there, it lists all the dashboard components, and within those dashboard components, it will show all the relevant tweets. Now, if we go down and we look at the onInitialized async, we're overriding this. It calls the loader service and the create async method within that. When it's doing that, it then calls the start hub async method. This connects to the SignalR connection, and it will do that through the API service here. Once it's connected, it will reload the dashboards and show it to the user. Now if we have a look at the API service, so if we go ahead and open that up, which is within Services API service, when this gets initialized, it establishes that connection with the hub, with the SignalR hub on the API. Within that, we've created a couple of event handlers as well, and these tie up with the events that are stored within the API service. So if we go back into index.razor, we go back to the onInitialized, we can actually call these events so things can actually happen within the Blazor WebAssembly application. So for example, when the hub is reconnecting, we can display a particular message on the modal as well, display to the user that the actual hub is reconnecting. We can also do that for when a tweet is being created, so we can actually go ahead and update the actual dashboards with the new tweets in real time. And we've got a couple of other things as well, like if we're syncing up the recent tweets again so they don't get too out of sync. In the background, it resyncs sort of every 10 minutes or so, although it might be up to an hour, but it will basically do a complete resync and basically make sure that all the tweets are up to date and in sync. So if you've been watching us in part 1, hopefully by now you successfully applied for a Twitter developer account. Twitter have come back to you and said it's okay, and now you've got your account set up. Next thing you need to do is you need to get your client ID and client secret so you can connect to the Twitter API. So I'm on developer.twitter.com and I click on the developer portal. I'm already logged in at this stage. So we've got our projects and apps. So if we go in there, and we've got an app in here called Twitter Blazor. So this is the one that should be set up when you create your Twitter developer account. We don't want this on a standalone app because it doesn't support OAuth 2 at this point in time. So we go in here, and what we've got in here is we've got our app details. So we've got our name, our ID, etc. And we need to click on this keys and tokens. Now, in order to actually get the API key and secret, we need to go ahead and regenerate it. And there you go, it's displayed our API key and secret. We need both these details for Blash. So now that we've got the client ID and client secret from the Twitter API, we need to put it into Blash. In order to do that, we go into the ASP.NET Core Web API. We go all the way down to app settings.json. Now if we go all the way down, you can see we've got an option here for our connection string. As well as that, we've got a couple of other settings as well. So when we're updating the tweets, so syncing them up to ensure that we've got the most recent tweets available, we can set how often that happens. In this instance, we're doing it for 1 hour, but you can change that to what you want it to be. We've also got a setting here where we've got the maximum number of tweets per dashboard. This is currently set to 10. We've also got client host here as well, and this is basically the host name for the Blazor WebAssembly application. But here is where we need to store the client ID and client secret. So that information that you've got from the Twitter developer account, the client ID and client secret, they need to be put in here. Once you've done that, you can run Blash and it will load up the API, the ASP.NET Core Web API and the Blazor WebAssembly, and it will do its thing in the background with the API, and then the dashboard should then load up. So that's Blash, a real-time Twitter dashboard written in .NET 5. If you've got any questions or comments about Blash, get in touch with me, go to roundthecode.com and click on the contact button at the top of the page. And if you wish to download the source code once again, you can go to roundthecode.com/Blash. Thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.